It's time for the JMRA Football Podcast, a podcast for the fans by a fan. Yeah! Here's your host, Derek Jones.
I'm live. Wow. Well, hello there. Hi there. This is really awkward. This is going to be awkward because I have not live streamed in a long time. So we're gonna see what happens. I've already made one error because I'm blocking my quality memorabilia, my quality merch. Hold on a second. I'm gonna move something here while we're live. So we'll get to brass tacks here in a second. We're gonna move old Joe here. Let's see if we can not drop Joe. We're gonna move Joe. Where can we move? Well, let's move Joe up here. I had Joe up here originally, and I shouldn't have moved him. But I don't want you thinking illy of me because, see, now you can't see Joe. Now you can't see Joe here at the top. This is utterly absurd. I have to... Hold on, Joe. There we go. Sorry, Joe. Now we're good. All right. Now you can't do a podcast under the auspices of Joe Montana's right arm without the king himself. See, I still don't like how this is positioned. All right. That's how it's going to... It's in reverse. See, this whole thing... Forget it. We're starting. I'm not wasting any more time. Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Jones. This is the JMRA Football Podcast, and we are here to talk to you about Week 4. Now, this is a change because whether you're listening to this via your traditional podcasting means or however you're consuming this is also a live stream. So I don't know who's listening to this, who's watching it, whatever. But here we are. And we're here with you. And we're going to get some graphics eventually. I wanted to get this off the ground. Me and technology sometimes, meh. But we're here. And we're going to talk about all that was in Week 4. And we've got a lot of ground to cover. If you've listened to the podcast before, assuming you have not, we normally go through every game. But what we're going to do today is something a little different. Instead of going through every game in like painstaking detail, we're going to do a little bit more rapid fire here today because at the end of the day, we got to get down to brass tacks here. We've got to talk about the issues of the day, as it were. And that's really going to be what we're going to center this show on. So let's start out with the top 5 things I am looking at in terms of Week 4. And the first thing we're going to start with, the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills beat the Baltimore Ravens 23-20 on Sunday. A very controversial game because the Bills were, in my opinion, gifted that game. They were gifted the game because, and look, I am not negative towards analytics. However, I am 100% against this idea that John Harbaugh needed to go for it on Sunday. So the Bills are trailing throughout the game. They're trailing 20-3. They storm back in the fourth quarter. It's 20-20. The Ravens have the ball. It looks like they're going to go in and score. And then what happens? They decide to go for it on fourth down from, I believe, right around the Buffalo 4. They decide instead of kicking a field goal with arguably one of the 5 to 10 best players on the field in Justin Tucker and say, you know what? We're good. We're not going to do that. We are actually going to go for it. Now, people in the analytics community, a lot of people said, oh, I love it. Go for it. Show some gumption. Why not? Do it. Ham it up. I could not disagree more. The reason you don't want to go for it here, in my opinion, is very simple. It's raining outside. This is not your typical game. I get the idea of not trusting your defense to be able to make a stop. But all the Bills need are 3 points. That's all they need. They don't need to do all this crazy stuff to go down the field and score a touchdown. They just need 3 points, okay? I got that. The issue is this. It is a torrential downpour outside. It rained throughout the day. These are not ideal conditions. So you're going to give the Bills how many ever yards to try to drive and tie the game up with a field goal, or you're going to put them in a situation where they're going to try to score a touchdown. I just think that they made a gigantic mistake. Speaking of the Ravens, you've got to give some level of trust to your defense, and they didn't do that. The Bills, for most of this game, didn't do a ton in terms of actually moving the football. They struggled a great deal. I just think you've got to put the ball, in essence, in the hands of your defense. Because if you don't, what are you doing? Then you're not a real team anyways. You're not a Super Bowl contender of any renown. You've got to be able to figure out what you're doing. So I think that was a major mistake by John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens. Kick the field goal. Hey, if the Bills go down the field and tie the game, great. To me, I don't think the odds are super great. And I know the analytics suggest otherwise. In those conditions, what are the odds of the Bills legitimately driving down the field and scoring a touchdown and you losing the game 27-23? Considering what they had done throughout the day, I'll take those chances. But John Harbaugh did not. He wanted to go for it. And look, I get it. If you're going to go for it, you have Lamar Jackson. Why wouldn't you go for it? But my problem is, it's pretty simple. If you're going to go through all of those motions just to do that, where was the play? You got to come up with a better play than that. And they did not. They did not come up with a good play at all. I thought it was a terrible idea. You roll out, anytime you move, kind of slide out right, it ends up being an interception. Anytime you move out right, it just cuts off a part of the field. I didn't like the call. I didn't like the play call. I didn't like the decision to go for it. I just thought it was a bad idea. And now you're looking at a situation where obviously the Ravens, are really in trouble in terms of trying to establish themselves easily as an AFC contender. They're 2-2 now in the AFC North. The AFC North, not great right now. You have the Steelers struggling, obviously. We'll talk about them later on. You've got what's going on with the Bengals. We'll talk about them as well. The Bengals have kind of sort of turned things around, but we'll see. And then, of course, you also have the Cleveland Browns, who they're kind of a phony 2-2. So you have a lot of these teams in the AFC North that haven't quite shown you the ability, I think, to be a legitimate playoff team yet. So we'll see. The Ravens defense has been awful at home, and they haven't been able to close games, and they don't close this one again. I know you have the desire there to say, I want to go for it and not put my defense in a situation to lose a game for me. But guess what? You lost the game anyways. Take the points and get out of there. There's too much of this, we got to go for it because the numbers tell us. Have a feel for the game. And I just think the feel of the game is more important than what some chart is telling you or what somebody's telling you who says, this is the percentage of what will happen on this play if we go for it. Or you get this. Or whatever. I don't like it. I just don't like it. I just think we're heading down a bad path. I mean, I get the kicking game is being less, I guess, de-emphasized, if you will, because of the idea of analytics and, we've got to go for it at midfield. We've got to go for it with 5 minutes left to go in the first quarter because who knows? That might be something later down the line. Teams are giving up points, and it's costing them every time, almost seemingly, late in games. And once again here, this is another situation where they messed up. And unfortunately for the Baltimore Ravens, they now fall to 2-2. Okay, the other things that caught my eye. We're all going to lump the next 4 things all in one thing. Because I think right now, the most important question in the NFL is not who is the best team in the NFL. It's not who the best team is in the NFC. It's not who the best team is in the AFC. I think the most important question right now is who is the second best team in the NFC? Because I think there are a lot of questions and concerns about that. Who in the world is going to step up and make a run in the NFC? Somebody's going to do it. It's going to happen. I'm confident somebody will step up. But if you're asking me who that is, I'm not 100% sure. So let's get to the discussion here. So we're going to start in the 4 o'clock games, and we'll get to the main principle the Eagles coming up here in a second. But let's talk about what happened with the Green Bay Packers. They win against New England 27-24 at Lambeau. Bailey Zappi. That's right. You heard correct. Bailey Zappi almost took a dub away from Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau Field. So Brian Hoyer gets a start for New England. Things get turned around. It's a situation where obviously New England cannot get Hoyer right in terms of the concussion. He has to leave the game, and we're going to get into the concussion stuff too. That's a whole nother situation. What a mess that is in Miami, but we'll get there. So Brian Hoyer suffers a concussion. He's out for the game. Bailey Zappi comes in, and you clearly see the Patriots play calling as a result gets kind of wonky because they have to try to figure out what this kid can handle. So they had to be careful. But they get the pick six from Jack Jones to take the lead going into halftime. You get, whether it was right or wrong, kind of the bogus touchdown off the delay of game penalty that wasn't called. You get that in the second half. So the Patriots have the lead. It looks good for them, but Aaron Rodgers, too much in the fourth quarter, comes back, makes some big throws. He was awful early on in that game. He completed 4 of his first 11 passes. He was not good at all early on, and kudos to him. He shows you why he's the defending reigning MVP of the National Football League. He comes back, makes some big-time throws, and obviously in overtime, the Patriots can't get things done. The Packers take over and eventually win the game 27-24. So here's the deal. To me, when you look at the NFC, there's no reason, there's no excuse anymore for number 12 in Green Bay. Who is in your way of doing something? I mean, I know the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo went to Lambeau last year and beat the Packers, but who is in the way of the Packers at this point? With all due respect to the Philadelphia Eagles, respectfully, this is Aaron Rodgers' NFC to lose, okay? It's his NFC to lose. We're going to talk about the Bucs coming up, and I'll explain what their ailment is right now. And there's a lot of stuff going on. When you look at the NFC right now, you have Jimmy Garoppolo with San Francisco, and Green Bay's had tons of trouble with the 49ers. We got it. You clearly have another team in the Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions. We know who they are. To me, Aaron Rodgers as the MVP, this is a guy who may be making his last gasp, his last run at this. The quarterbacks in the conference right now are not strong enough from top to bottom from the time you get into January for you to say, oh, okay, Aaron Rodgers, you're outclassed. No, that's not the case. Green Bay's receivers are a significant weakness. There's no question about that. We'll see if they get Odell Beckham Jr., but the defense is good enough. I don't think I'd rank it in the top 10 in the NFC. Well, I shouldn't say that. Top 5 in the NFC, but it's certainly competitive. I think they can play with some people. But to me, I just think this is a situation where the Packers have the experience. They've been there over and over again with Rodgers, with Jones, with some of the veterans along the offensive line, some of the guys on defense. It's time. This is it. This is on. I know it doesn't seem like it right now because they're not 4-0. They're not the undefeated team in the NFC. If not now, when for this man? When? Tom Brady, the guy who walked into the NFC, was in the NFC for 5 minutes, and won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. His team is in borderline disarray right now. I don't know. I don't know what else you guys need to do. I know we've got a long way to go. But the Packers, they get yourselves together by November when you play the Eagles. There is no excuse No excuse for them not to be in the Super Bowl. No excuse. I know he has had problems in the postseason. There is no excuse for this guy to not be able to get these cats out of the NFC. Are the receivers good enough? We'll see. But you know what? Most of the time when you look at Super Bowl teams, they don't have great receivers. Not every receiving group is like Oz Hakeem, Isaac Bruce, and Torrey Holt. I mean, the time is now for Green Bay. My goodness. Oh yeah, the team that's actually in the number one spot in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles, 4-0. Down 14-0 on Sunday to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but credit them. They come back, they storm back, they score 29 unanswered, they win 29-21. Trevor Lawrence, 5 turnovers in the game, including 4 fumbles. Terrible job by him. Look, the Eagles were great. They ran the ball down the throats of the Jaguars. Jalen Hurts, not his best game so far, but one that was good enough to help grab a victory. And look, I think that as the season wears on, the Eagles have really positioned themselves, and I said this last week on the podcast, like they've really positioned themselves to be the number one seed in the NFC. That schedule's garbage. There really aren't a significant amount of landmines to stop them from getting to the Super Bowl. So I think you're just going to see a situation here where they should storm through the NFC and not have many issues. And if they're able to do that, they'll be the top seed in January, and we'll see what they can do. Now, one of the interesting developments is what's going on in Dallas. So the Cowboys beat Washington 25-10 on Sunday. And look, they've got a pretty good defense. I have to say, it has not been bad at all. And we'll see once these teams start stepping outside of the NFC East just how good it is. But I think you have to be kind of impressed with what Dallas has done so far this year with Cooper Rush. They're 3-1. They're playing with confidence. They trust Cooper Rush. Big test on Sunday when they take on the Rams. That's going to be a huge matchup in LA because if the Rams lose two in a row, you have to be worried about the Rams now. But I think as all of this relates to the Eagles, at least for right now, their 2 main concerns on the schedule, and we'll see what happens with the Cardinals. Is there a chance they could lose to the Cardinals on Sunday? Yeah. Will they? I wouldn't bet on it. But there is a chance. The Cardinals the Cardinals will make you work in the sense of you're going to have to chase Kyler Murray around for 4 quarters. We'll see if the Eagles can deal with that. They should be able to move the ball. But I think when you look at the Eagles' schedule, you're looking at the Cowboys games and the Packers. That's really it. Maybe the Saints turn it around. Maybe the Colts and Titans turn it around. But the Eagles don't have to play Tampa. They don't really have to play anybody else in the NFC of any virtue outside of the Cowboys. I mean, the Giants, the Giants aren't ready yet. I know the Giants are 3-1, but you can't take them seriously yet. You're looking at these teams so far, it's hard to envision a world where the Eagles struggle significantly, unless there's injuries, and that could happen, and they got a little banged up on Sunday. The Eagles should be able to win 12, 13, or 14 games easy with that schedule. And their over-under this year was 8.5. They should nail that easily. So the Eagles are in the catbird seat right now in the NFC, okay? They look the best in terms of defense and in terms of offense. They have played the best so far. To me, you could have said Miami was the best team in the NFL. Maybe you say Buffalo is the best team in the NFL. I kind of think that Buffalo is still the best team in the NFL, but in the end here, man, it's tough to deny what the Eagles are doing right now. Can they keep it up? I think so. I think. But, man, that schedule, it's hard to argue against that. So let's stay in the NFC. The Bucs lose 41-31 to Kansas City on Sunday night. Watching that game, you knew the second Rachaad White put that ball on the grass, you knew the game was in huge trouble for Tampa because it's on a tee right away for Patrick Mahomes, and he's set to go, and they go right in. Travis Kelce, touchdown. So, I mean, you're looking at putting the Chiefs in an easy spot to score a touchdown, and they do, and they take advantage of it. They get another turnover later on. It took a little while for Tampa's offense to get going again. And finally, they were able to churn out some yardage through the air, nearly 400 yards passing for Tom Brady. They ran the ball 6 times on Sunday. And look, to me, the storyline of this game, obviously Kansas City played very well. You can't dispute that. But Tampa's defense stunk. Tampa's defense was a massive disappointment. I think teams right now, it's going to be a hit or miss situation on how they deal with the Chiefs without Tyreek Hill. I was saying this to somebody the other day. I said, one of the dangerous things about the Chiefs in the red zone and just at large, which makes them generally tough to defend, is you don't know what Patrick Mahomes is going to do. But I think the scary thing is, neither does he. And because of that, I think it makes it very hard for teams to defend the Chiefs on a down-in, down-out basis. So the offensive line played really well. I think the thing that you have to be very worried about for Tampa is how well the Chiefs ran the ball. The Chiefs ran the ball right down Tampa's throat. Tampa was the preeminent run-stopping defense. It has been the preeminent run-stopping defense over the last couple of seasons. And, Vita Vea, they just ran by and around him. They missed Ndamukong Suh, I think, in Tampa. I mean, we haven't talked about the defensive line changes much with Tampa in the previous podcast, but no Jason Pierre-Paul, no Ndamukong Suh, and they're really not as consistent of a run-stopping group as they've been in years past. So we'll see how that kind of plays out for Tampa moving forward. Tough loss for them. I do think eventually, they will get things together. To me right now, I think you're looking at the top 4 teams in the NFC, okay? The Eagles 1, Green Bay 2, Tampa 3, Dallas 4, Rams 5. I mean, that would be the ranking to me at this point. So I would look at your 5 teams in the NFC being that. The 49ers, where do they kind of fit in? I think they do at some point, but it's just going to be a matter of how consistent Jimmy Garoppolo is. They've always, at least under Kyle Shanahan, they seemingly always have been able to give the Rams some significant headaches. So they did again with the 24-9 win on Monday night to elevate themselves in the race for the NFC West crown. They are 2-2, as is the rest of the division. And yeah, I think that clearly, as this season wears on, it's going to be a very intriguing race in the NFC West to see who kind of steps up. And the Rams have problems. The Rams can't block. I don't think their defense is very spectacular right now. So until they get that offensive line fixed, nothing else is going to work. They can keep trying to force passes to Cooper Kupp all they want, but if they can't block for Matthew Stafford and if they can't run block, they're dead meat. They're dead meat. It's not going to be anywhere close to what happened last year. And remember, for as good as that season turned out for the Rams last year, they had some huge breaks to win the Super Bowl. And it appears right now they are not heading anywhere close to a similar fate at this point. So it is going to be very difficult for the Rams to repeat as Super Bowl champions or for them to get out of the NFC unless some things change immediately. Okay, let's shoot around the league and take a look at some of the other games that went on. The Bengals win Thursday Night Football 27-15 over the Miami Dolphins. Look, I think that the clear thing that stands out is a Tua's nonsense with the concussion. He shouldn't have played. There's no question about that. He had a concussion. It appears against Buffalo the week prior, days prior. The weird thing was he was doing interviews on Amazon. So I don't know what people thought. I mean, people were outraged that he played. But should you be interviewing? I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing was weird. So he is out for the game against the Jets, which makes a ton of sense. He's not going to play this upcoming week against the Jets. And you shouldn't have him on the field, to me, for the next few weeks, because at minimum, because you just can't trust that situation is going to turn itself around. And you have to look out for the guy's safety too, obviously, because eventually this guy, you hope, is the future of the franchise. And he's not going to be the future of the franchise by getting his head slammed to the turf every week. That's not working. So they've got to figure out a way to kind of work around that situation. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a good substitute to have. He has shown in the past that in a relief spot, he can be a very productive player. So we'll see how Miami does with that. Cincinnati obviously getting the big win. And the Bengals, they need to protect Joe Burrow. It's as simple as that. They haven't done a good job doing that. They've been terrible at protecting, not projecting. They've been terrible at protecting Joe Burrow throughout the season, and that has to turn around. And it's getting there. It's getting there, but they've got a lot of work to do in the coming weeks. They have that tough AFC North schedule. They'll see Tampa later on in the year. So Cincinnati has their work cut out for them in the AFC without a doubt. The Vikings beat the Saints 28-25 in London. Big win for the Vikings as the Saints come up short. A Will Lutz kick who had already hit from 60 in that game, missed from 61, and he hit the upright and then he hit the crossbar. My God. A double doink for old Will Lutz. Disappointing loss for the Saints as their struggles continue. They drop to 1-3 now. The Falcons beat the Browns 23-20. The Falcons, a little feisty, 2-2 now in the NFC South, and they've got a chance to jump into first place if they beat Tampa on Sunday. Oh my goodness. We already went over the Cowboys and Commanders. Carson Wentz, Auf Wiedersehen, my friend. He's going to be out of the league soon at this rate. Seahawks 48, Lions 45, perhaps in the shootout. Well, not perhaps. It was a shootout of the day. Geno Smith, man. Geno Smith is one of the top quarterbacks in the league based off the numbers. Isn't that crazy? This man, Geno Smith, is outplaying Russell Wilson right now. If I told a Seahawks fan at the end of last season that Russell Wilson would be getting outplayed by Geno Smith after you traded Russell Wilson, you'd be like, nah, come on, man. That's exactly what's happening. Crazy, crazy, crazy time. Chargers bounce back 34-24 win over the Houston Texans. Big win, much needed win for the Chargers. Justin Herbert looking strong, throwing for over 300 yards. Austin Eckler gets a couple of scores as well. So big performance for the Chargers. Titans 24, Colts 17. The Indianapolis Colts. What are we going to do with y'all? Now Jonathan Taylor's hurt. He's going to be out Thursday night for the game against the Broncos. Tough times headed the way of the Indianapolis Colts. The Giants go to 3-1. They beat the Bears 20-12. The Justin Fields era, man, that's hurting. Daniel Jones, speaking of hurting, suffered an ankle injury. Tyrod Taylor got hurt as well. They were running the Wildcat with Saquon Barkley at various points throughout the game. So the health of Daniel Jones will be something to monitor. And he'll be back, but that's something. When you get those ankle injuries, that's not great. And they've got an interesting week coming up because on Sunday they will play in London against the Green Bay Packers. The Jets beating the Steelers 24-20. Awful loss for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are not going to win many games this year, folks. I know Kenny Pickett is coming into the mix here to start at quarterback. He threw a few interceptions on Sunday. He's all right. I just think you're in a situation here with the Steelers where you're in a no-win spot. You've got to start the rookie at this point, and it's probably going to cost you some games. And I think the Steelers eventually will be a good team, but it's going to be a few weeks, and their schedule gets a lot harder. They've got Buffalo coming up on Sunday. They're 14-point underdogs. When was the last time you heard a Steelers team being 2-touchdown underdogs? I mean, maybe the only time I can think off the top of my head is maybe when they played the Patriots in 2007. I can't remember a time where that was even remotely possible for them to be a 2-touchdown underdog. Cardinals 26, Panthers 16. Dreadful game. Dreadful. I tried turning that thing on, and I immediately regretted it. Just not great. Kyler Murray able to really get the Cardinals over the top. Baker Mayfield, again, Sam Darnold suffered an injury during the preseason. Look, things are struggling right now for the Carolina Panthers. They're going to be in deep trouble in the NFC South. If the Cardinals hold serve and beat the teams they should beat, they're going to be in the playoff race again, and a big one on Sunday against the Eagles. And to round things out, the Raiders 32, the Broncos 23. The Raiders get their first win of the season. The Broncos spent over $200 million on Russell Wilson, and look at that return on investment. Not good. Not good at all. And that, my friends, is the end. We have concluded the JMRA Football Podcast. I will say this briefly as we close things out. I know I did not talk about Tom Brady and Giselle and that whole situation. Look, the man will talk when he wants to talk, I'm sure. And I don't think it'll be anytime soon about that in any detail. So when you have two folks worth that kind of money, I don't think we're going to hear anything anytime soon, or maybe at all. So let the man be. Let her be. I see all these people tagging him on Twitter trying to make jokes and stuff. Hey, I've never been married, but I can tell you, that stuff sucks. So just hope the best for everybody involved in the situation. I would assume the next time he's in front of a microphone or behind a microphone or wherever you want to put it, somebody's going to ask him about it. I don't expect him to answer any questions about it. It's football time, and until football time is over, then I don't think you're going to get a peep out of him. I don't think you're going to get any news out of it unless you read the New York Post, which is where that story emanated from. But with that, that concludes the JMRA Football Podcast. By the way, Player of the Week, Geno Smith. Come on, Geno. You got to give Geno Smith some love. That man's dealing right now in the NFC. Dealing for the Seahawks. I don't know if the Seahawks are going to win 7 games or 6 games or 5 games, but I am enjoying the Geno Smith experience. All right. We're done with our first live stream. I guess we'll keep going with this. We'll see what happens. More to come. Until next time, happy football, everybody. And follow on Twitter at Derek Jones, DEREK Jones 79 on Twitter. Until next time. See ya.